Sa video natin ngayon, we will try to solve a problem involving orifice. Now we have the water tank that has the form of a right circular cone of diameter 3.66 meters. And so draw natin yan. Ito yung tank natin, and then yung shape niya is cone. Yan. And then it is surmounted daw with a right circular cylinder of the same diameter. And then yung height ng cylinder is also 3.66 meters. And so dito sa cone natin, meron daw cylinder dito sa taas. And so draw natin yan. And so ito yung figure natin. Now there is an orifice daw at the vertex of the cone whose area is 0.0929. Now in hydraulics pala, an orifice is an opening of any size or shape in a pipe or at the bottom sidewall of a container through which fluid is discharged. And so yung meaning niyan is merong opening dito. And then yung water inside ng tank natin, it's allowed to be discharged right here. And then initially daw, the tank is full of water. So let's just actually color this one. Yan. And then yung coefficient of discharge daw is 0.6. And then we have to evaluate the following. First, we need to find the time to empty the cylindrical part of the tank, which is this one. And then we also need to find the time to empty the conical part of the tank, which is ito. Now, pag-uusapan natin yung core formula na gagamitin natin. Now, diba, we know that Q is equal to A times V, which is the discharge. And then, diba, yung unit nito is volume, or let's say M cubed, kasi ito naman yung usual, divided by any unit of time. And then, yung usual natin na ginagamit is seconds. Now, diba, if I will multiply this by a unit of time, which is the same as this, magka-cancel yung S. And so, yung matitira na lang is cubic meter, which is volume. And so, diba, we can say that volume is equal to the discharge multiplied by the time, if we will just base it from unit analysis. And so, diba, what we are trying to find here is the time. And so, to find time, we will divide both sides by Q. Divide natin to by Q, and also this one. And so, magka-cancel to, and then yung T natin will become volume divided by Q. Ito yung formula na gagamitin natin. However, itong volume natin dito, we will just actually consider a differential element. So let's say, ito. Yan. Now let's zoom in. This is our differential height. And then ito naman, this is our differential area. Now, for the cylindrical part of the tank, yung differential area natin is always the area of the circle. Kasi diba, at this height, yung area ng circle is pi d squared over 4. And then, the same yan dito, dito, and then, up to here. And then, dito na sa conical part ng tank, magbabago yung equation. And so, that's why we will isolate the two. Now, diba, in integration, we can express volume as the integral from A to B of the differential area multiplied by dH. Kasi diba, yung volume ng strip na to, that's area, which is this one, multiplied by the height, which is ito. Essentially, yung strip natin ay parang isang coin na ganito yung itsura. Yan. And then yung volume is the cross-sectional area multiplied by the height. Yan yung concept natin dyan. And so ito yung gagamitin natin for the volume. And then also notice na merong change in elevation from this point patungo dito. And so sir, what does that mean? Diba sa orifice na vertical lang yung movement ng water, yung equation ng velocity natin, by the way, let's just change this into volume para hindi kayo malito sa velocity. Now yung velocity natin, when we have an orifice wherein vertical yung movement ng water is C, or the coefficient of discharge, multiplied by square root of 2gh. Now this just comes from the potential energy. And so ito yung velocity natin. Now diba, dito sa figure natin, at each strip, yung height natin nag-change. By the way, ito yung expression ng height natin. Yan. Diba, yung height dito is different from here. And so yung h natin dito sa equation is variable. Kasi dito, 0 yung height. And then dito naman, that will be 3.66 times 2. By the way, let's just label our dimensions. Yung height daw ng right circular cone is 3.66. So this is 3.66. And then yung height ng cylinder is also 3.66. Yan. Yung height dito is 3.66. And then dito naman, that's 7.32. Yan. And then yung diameter ng cross-section natin is also 3.66. And so balik tayo, yung h dito is 0, and then it's increasing up to this point. Now, ito yung gagawin natin. We will describe this equation in terms of an integral. Kasi variable kasi yung h natin dito. Magbabago kasi yung velocity at this point, and then at any point right here. Kasi essentially, our velocity will decrease if the elevation is lesser. Kasi liliit yung h. And so, diba, we can still express time as volume divided by Q. but we will use the integral. And then yung limit natin is the lower elevation up to the higher elevation. And then yung volume natin, we'll express that as area multiplied by dH. Yan. And then divided by our Q, which is, diba, yung Q is equal to area times velocity. Yung area natin is yung area ng orifice. Now, by the way, yung label ko dito is AO. And then dito naman sa taas, I will label that as AS, or the surface area. And so, papalitan na lang natin to. This is AS. And then dito sa baba, we have AO times the velocity, which is C square root of 2GH. So, this is C square root of 2GH. Yan. Now, sir, ano yung area ng orifice? Yung area ng orifice is itong 0.0929, which is at the vertex of the cone. And so, andito yan, and then yung water natin is actually allowed to come out. Yan. And so, for the first question, we have to find the time to empty the cylindrical part of the tank. And so, let's consider this one. Now, yung T natin, magiging the integral from A, which is the initial elevation, which is 3.66, up to 7.32. Now, let's just change this one. This is H1, and this is H2, para klaro. And then we have ASDH over AO times C square root of 2GH. By the way, if we apply the limits for this one, that will just be the volume, because pareho lang yan dito. And so, highlight na lang natin, this is essentially the volume. And then, ito yung discharge, which is Q. Now, dito sa cylinder na part, hindi mahirap yung equation natin. Kasi yung area dito is actually the same throughout this length. And so, that means na yung AS natin, or the surface area, that will just be pi r squared. Now, by the way, yung radius natin will be half ng 3.66, which is 1.83 meters. And so, this is pi r squared. Yan. And then, divided by AO, which is the area of the orifice, which is 0.0929, and then multiplied by C times square root of 2GH. Now, yung C natin is 0.6. And so, this will be 0.6 multiplied by square root of 2GH. And then, yung G natin will just be the gravitational constant, which is 9.81. And then, multiplied by H. And so, since na-form na natin yung equation, we will just use our calculators. We have the integral from 3.66 up to 7.32, that's equal to pi times 1.83 and then squared divided by 0.0929 times 0.6 times square root of 2 times 9.81 times the height. And so that will give us 67.54. And so this is the time required to empty the cylindrical part of the tank. This is for letter A. Now next, dito naman tayo sa cone. Now to analyze this one, we will just actually isolate this figure. Yan. And then diba, yung diameter is also 3.66. And so yung radius is 1.83. Now, yung difference dito is yung surface area natin will change from this point patungo dito. Kasi diba, yung area will vary from 0 dito kasi the area here is actually close to 0, and then dito, it will be pi r squared. And so, we need to express the area in terms of the height. Now, sir, paano namin gagawin yan? We can actually consider this portion. Let's cut our cone in half. Yan. And then, let's draw a line dito. And then, let's draw a line dito. Now, diba, ito yung radius natin. And then, if we'll consider the top part, yung area natin dito will be pi r squared. And then, dito naman, yung AS natin ay 0. And then at any point, the same lang yung formula ng area, which is pi r squared. However, yung magbabago lang is yung radius. And so let's consider this strip. Yan. Now, diba, itong distance na to from here patungo dito, that will still be the radius. But liliit na yan if we'll compare that dito. And then by the way, since ito yung height natin from the bottom part patungo sa top, we will actually express r in terms of the height. And so we can consider the ratio of this triangle. Now, diba, if i-isolate natin yung triangle na yan, magiging ganito. Yan. And then this is 1.83 meters. Kasi ito yung radius sa top. And then dito naman, let's label this as R. And then ito, let's label this as H. And so let's relate the height over the radius. Now, for this small triangle, we have H over R. And then for the bigger triangle, we have our height is, this is 3.66. And then our radius is 1.83 meters. Now, by the way, we are doing this para we can express R in terms of H. Kasi diba, sa integral equation natin, yung variable na ini-integrate natin is h. And so that's why we are to express r in terms of h para ma-integrate ng calculators natin. And so diba, this will become 2. So h over r is equal to 2. And so h will be equal to 2r. And then divide natin by 2. Our r is actually h over 2. Yan. Ito yung equation natin. Nabalik tayo dito. Diba, yung AS is the surface area at any point. Now, since we already have the radius, diba, if we'll consider this element, yung area niyan is still pi r squared. But since we have r in terms of h, papalitan natin to. This will be h over 2. And so this will be what we will substitute dun sa AS. And so we have t from h1 to h2. And then our AS will become pi times h over 2 squared. And then dh. By the way, meron din tong dh dito. Nakalimutan ko lang. And then yung AO natin is still the same, which is 0.0929. And then multiply natin to by 0.6, which is c, times square root of 2gh. Yan. And then since isa na lang yung variable natin dito, which is h, masosolve na natin yung definite integral. We will just change this one into our limits. Now, diba, for the cone, we started at 0 and then ended at 3.66. Kasi again, yung height is 3.66. So from 0 up to 3.66. And so let's just type this sa calculators natin. And so we have the integral from 0 to 3.66 and then pi times h over 2 and then squared divided by 0.0929 times 0.6 times square root of 2 times 9.81 multiplied by h. And so press equals. Notice na magma-math error yung calculator. Now sir, bakit? Diba, if we will use 0 as our lower limit, this expression will become 0. Kasi diba, if this is 0, then the denominator will also become 0. Now recall na, if we are dividing a number by 0, magiging undefined. And so that's why mag-error. Now sir, ano yung gagawin natin? Yung ginagawa ko dati is, I will actually change 0 into 0.00001 or any value approaching 0. Kasi negligible lang naman yung difference. And so I will just put here 0.000001. Now, ikaw na yung bahala. By the way, yung disadvantage lang if andun ka na sa calculator mo, medyo mabagal yung process nito. However, meron naman tayong derived formulas para dito. However, it's ideal to be aware of the concept kasi minsan, spherical kasi yung tank natin. Or sometimes, it's also trapezoidal. And then, wala kasi tayong derived formulas para sa shapes na yan. But kung meron man, ang haba lang din. But itong equation na to, this is applicable for all shapes. Yan yung advantage niyan. And then later, maituturo akong CALTECH. And so press equals, yung answer natin magiging 32.61. And so this is the time required to empty the conical part of the tank. And so dito sa first figure, ito na yung nangyari. Bale, wala nang tubig dito sa cylindrical part. And then for the second question, wala na ring water dito. And so yung orifice natin is already empty. And so for letter C, if we are to find the total time to empty the tank, it will just be the sum of these. And so for letter C, we have total time is equal to 67.54 plus 32.61, which is 100.15, and then seconds. By the way, yung CALTECH dito is we can actually use the stat function. Now sir, ano yung makukuha sa CALTECH? Yung makukuha natin sa CALTECH is the area in terms of the height. Itong surface area, or this one. Now, diba, if we are to simplify this, this will become pi times h squared divided by 4. And so that'll be 0.785. So this is 0.785 times h squared. Now, there's a way to get this value using our calculators. We'll use the stat function. Go to mode. And then dito tayo sa stat. And then dito tayo sa number 3. Now, sir, bakit dito tayo sa 3? Diba, we are trying to express the area. And then yung degree ng area is squared. And so that's why we are interested in this one. So press 3. And then dito sa x values, we'll input the height. So isusulat ko na lang dito, we have x and y. Dito, we will input the height. And then for y, we'll input the area. Kasi ito kasi yung independent variable natin. Because our area changes with the height. Or simply, our area is dependent with the height. Now sir, ano yung i-consider namin? By the way, since yung degree dito is squared, then that means na we will actually establish 3 points. Kung second degree, establish 3 points. Now usually kasi sa CALTECH, linear lang kasi yung ginagamit. And so that's why we are just using 2 points. And then by the way, yung default na expression ng calculator is cx squared plus bx plus a. So bale, our a is the constant term, and then our b is the coefficient of x, and then yung c is the coefficient of x squared. And so diba, since our height is expressed as x, we can just actually change this into x. Kasi yan yung independent variable. Now yung height dito is 0. Dito sa bottom. Yan, 0 yung height dyan. And then yung area is also 0. And then dito naman tayo sa top. Now diba, yung height natin dyan is 3.66. So this is 3.66. And then yung area natin is pi r squared, which is pi times yung radius na 1.83 and then squared. Now this is only 2 points. And so we need to add 1 point. Now usually, para madali yung third point, we'll just consider half of h. So let's say this is 1.83. And so diba, by using ratio and proportion, kasi linear lang naman yung triangle, we can say that yung r dito is just half ng 1.83. And so that will be 1.83 divided by 2. That's 0.915. So this is 0.915 meters. But if meron kang trust issues, you can just actually use this triangle and then change h into 1.83 and then you will get your r. But essentially, the same lang yung value na makukuha mo. And so for the third point, we have h equals 1.83 and then our area will be pi times the radius, which is 0.915 and then squared. So balik tayo, we have stat and then press 3 and then we have 0, 0 and then 3.66 and then pi times 1.83 squared and then meron tayong 1.83 and then pi times 0.915 squared. Now, since medyo mag-iiba siya, kung meron kang CANON na calculator, I will just actually show you the two. And so dito muna tayo sa CASIO. Diba, we need to press AC. And then after nyan, press shift and then stat. Ito. And then we have regression. So press 5. And then we have here A, B, and then C. Now again, itong A is the constant term. And then yung B is the coefficient of x. And then yung C is the coefficient of x squared. And so let's press 1. Now diba, that will be 0. And so this is 0. And then press shift 1 again. And then go to regression. And then dito tayo sa B. That will still be 0. And so this is 0. And then now, press shift stat. And then dito tayo sa C. Press equals, meron tayong 0.785-398-1634. So this is 0.785-398-1634. And so diba, this is the same with this one. Itong expression na to. Kasi itong x dito, papalitan kasi natin yan ng h. And so usually, dati, is to store ko ito sa C. So press shift and then store, and then press letter C. And so yung mangyayari, sa equation natin, we have the integral from 0 to 3.66 and then yung AS, papalitan natin ng C times x squared. Kasi ito na yung AS natin. By the way, this is AS pala. Yan. And then we have 0.0929 times 0.6 times square root of 2 times 9.81 times the height. And then diba, pinalitan natin to ng 0.0001. And so the same lang yung sagot. Now itong CALTECH na to, this is ideal for more complicated problems. Like for example, if we have a hemispherical tank, na ipapakita ko na lang yan later. I will just first show you kung ano yung gagawin sa CANON. If CANON yung gamit mo, go to mode, and then equation, stat, and then go to quadratic because our degree was second degree. So press 3, and then input mo dito yung values dito. So this is 0, and then 3.66, and then 1.83, and then sa areas we have 0, and then pi times 1.83 squared, and then pi times 0.915 squared. And then press AC, and then dito ka sa apps. After nyan, dito ka sa regression. And then essentially, the same na yung lalabas. So for A, we have 0, and then for B, we have also 0, and then for C naman, we have 0.785. And so yan yung gagawin mo sa CANON. Now ngayon, let's try to apply the CALTECH dito. We have now a spherical tank which is 8 meters in diameter with an orifice of 20 mm diameter. And then yung coefficient of discharge natin is 0.55, and then we have now to find the time to empty the tank. Now this is for letter A, and then for letter B, we have to find the time to empty the hemispherical portion at the bottom of the tank. Now, if we will draw our figure, diba, ito yung itsura ng sphere. And then we have the orifice dito. Now by the way, dito, yung tank is initially full of water. Now, let's just actually change our diameter because this will give us unrealistic answers. Let's just change this into 500. Now, essentially, dito, the same lang yung gagawin natin. First, we will define this as our h. Now, diba, since this is circular, or I mean spherical, mahirap gawa ng equation yung area in terms of the height kasi this is already a second degree curve. And so dito advantageous talaga yung calculator technique. Diba, yung diameter ng spherical tank daw is 8 meters. And so ito yan. And then, considering half of it, that will be 4 meters. Now diba, sa calculator technique natin, we will need the following values. We have x, and then we also have y. And then diba, sa x, we will input the height, and then for y, we'll input the areas. Now, yung question is, ano yung 3 points na i-consider natin? Ito yung dapat mong tandaan. If you have a spherical tank, ideally, this should be your first point, which is at the tip. And then your second point will be at the tip, pero dito sa kabila. And then your third point, para madali, just use the center. Kasi diba, if we will slice that, ito yan. Alam kasi natin yung area dito. That will just be pi r squared. Using the radius of 4. Kasi this is 4 meters. Yan. By the way, dito sa inputs, it doesn't matter kung ito yung unang point mo, and then ito yung second, and then ito yung third, or if ito yung first point, ito yung second, or ito yung third. Hindi kasi yan magmamatter. Kasi mag-interpolate lang naman yung calculator natin base sa 3 points, in no particular order. And so here, let's start with this one. Yung elevation dito is 0. And then yung area dyan is also 0. Kasi that's at the tip. And then for this one, our elevation is 8 meters. So this is 8. And then our area here is still 0. So this is 0. And then here at the center, our elevation is 4 meters. And then our area is pi r squared, in which our r is 4 meters. So this is pi times 4 and then squared. And so now, we can already develop our equation for AS. Diba, AS is just equal to cx squared plus bx and then plus a. And so dito tayo sa calculators natin, press mode and then go to stat and then let's pick number 3. So for x, we have 0, 0 and then 8, 0 and then 4 with an area of pi times 4 squared. Press AC and then press shift stat. Let's go to regression and then let's press A. Press equals, magiging 0. So this is 0. And then let's now go to B. Yung B natin is 25.1327. So this is 25.1327. Or para magamit natin yung exact value, let's just store this sa B. Yan. And then press shift stat. And then dito na tayo sa C. Yung C natin magiging negative 3.14. Or simply, negative pi. But para magamit natin to, let's just store this as C. So shift store and then C. Yan. Again, this is negative pi. And so now, we can already use this equation. Diba, time is equal to the integral of h1 to h2. Now, yung h1 natin for the whole tank, kasi spherical kasi yung for letter A, that will be 0 up to 8. And then our AS will be cx squared plus bx. Hindi na natin isasali yung A, kasi 0 lang naman yung value. And then we have dh. By the way, itong x dito, that's just your h. And then we have the area of the orifice. Now, yung binigay dito is hindi area, but yung diameter. And so that means yung area natin is equal to pi over 4 times the diameter and then squared. However, notice na yung diameter natin is in mm. However, to be consistent with our units, kasi diba, this is m squared, and then yung gravitational constant is meter per second squared, we will actually need to convert this into meters. Now, diba, 500 mm is just equal to 0.5 meters. Now, again, 500 divided by 1000, that will give us 0.5. And so this is 0.5 meters and then squared. Ito yung AO natin. And then we have C, which is 0.55, and then square root of 2gh. So 2 times 9.81 times h. Yan. And so input natin, we have the integral from 0 to 8, and then our AS is cx squared, and then plus bx, divided by pi over 4 times 0.5 squared times 0.55 times square root of 2 times 9.81 times x. However, magma-math error to, and so we will replace 0 by 0.00001. Press equals, ito na yung lalabas, which is 317 seconds. So t equals 317 seconds. This is our answer for letter A. Now for letter B, we have to find the time to empty the hemispherical portion at the bottom of the tank. So we'll actually consider this one. Yan. And so diba, our height will be from 0 up to 4 meters. And so for this one, we'll just actually change the limits. So we have from 0 up to 4. Copy na lang natin. This is now 4. And so we have 196.15 seconds. Ito na yung mga sagot natin. By the way, this is letter B. Now, this is how you can check if your equation of AS is correct. Diba, we know that the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, we can actually use the integral. We have from 0 to 8, kasi ito yung limits ng height natin. And then we have cx squared plus bx, and then dh. And then, by the way, this is just our h. Yan. Now, diba, if you are to solve the volume, yung radius natin is 4 meters. And so we have 4/3 times pi times 4 cubed. And so ito yung volume natin, which is 268.08. Now, if ito yung gagamitin natin, we must get the same value. So we have the integral from 0 to 8, and then meron tayong ch squared or cx squared plus bx. Now, notice na the same lang yung answer natin, which is 268.08. Now, yung reason that this works is because we were considering a differential strip kasi dito. And then, if we are to add the volume of all those strips, yung area ng lahat ng yan, multiplied by the differential height, makukuha natin yung volume. And so, yan lang mga Lodi.